Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Rocky Top Insider Press Pass podcast here on this Wednesday, October 2nd edition. It's October the 2nd, and it's a two-man show. It's Jack Foster and Ryan Shepard coming at you, previewing Tennessee football's upcoming trip to Fayetteville, Arkansas. They will take on the Hogs, who are pretty feisty this year, a lot and some more intriguing matchup than maybe we thought going into the season, no doubt about it. But first, Ryan, how you doing? It's victory. It's Victory Tuesday yesterday. Now it's Victory
Yeah,
Wednesday. The Titans are 1-0, so I'm sure you're feeling pretty good this week.
yeah. I mean, I guess so. Can't say the win over Dolphins fired me up too much, but good to see a win nonetheless.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think we have Rick Butler as well. Rick, are you joining us today?
I am joining. We
Wow.
talked a minute ago. And I'll tell you what. I've kind of got one of these fall kind of just colds. I don't know. We've all been through it, right? It's just kind of something in the head, something of sinuses. We just talked a couple minutes ago. I was actually not planning on doing this show, but I got up and I was like, you know what, Rick, that's weak. Come on, you can push through. It's a 30-minute recording. It's a 40-minute recording. You can push through. I got a cold glass of water right here. So, yeah, I got off this call a minute ago, and I was like, no, this isn't sitting right with me. So I'm back here with you guys. I'm back in the show.
It's very funny considering by a minute ago, he literally means 1 minute before we hit the record.
Yeah.
Like 30 seconds, less than a minute. Now Rick's here. No concerts today, Rick. No performances. We'll make sure you take it easy today. Since you are a little bit under the weather, but glad to have you with us, no doubt. Gentlemen,
One
go ahead,
one
Ryan.
more thing in the intro.
Yeah.
I feel obliged to do it. I went on a big tangent in the preseason, a big rant about Kentucky and how Mark Stoops never wins big games and how overrated he is. And look, a lesser man would maybe come on here and just dog Ole Miss for losing. A lesser man would not even acknowledge it. Shout out Mark Stoops. Great win. Probably the best win of his Kentucky tenure.
No doubt.
And a very unmarked Stoops. I mean, how about throwing it deep on 4th and 7 at your own 20-yard line? Very unmarked Stoops. Like, congratulations to Mark Stoops. He proved the haters and losers, me, wrong. Big win for Kentucky. Congratulations to Mark Stoops. Congratulations to the Kentucky Wildcats. Way to prove me wrong.
Is Kentucky good?
Kentucky's hard to figure out, man. They're feisty.
How the hell did they get blown out by South Carolina, almost beat Georgia, and then beat Ole Miss?
Here's what you know how Big Cat does the little NFL team tiers each week. I'm putting Kentucky into frisky and not fun category.
Okay.
South Carolina's frisky and fun when Lenora Sellers is healthy. I think South Carolina's frisky and fun. Kentucky's frisky and not fun. So that's where I would put them right now. I don't know if they're good, but they're frisky, but they're also not fun.
I'll tell you what, too. I mean, watching that game, I think you do got to give a lot of credit to Kentucky, and they were able to hang through, and they were tough, and they were physical, and they were on the road. But I also look at Ole Miss coming out of that game, and I thought it was a soft performance from Ole Miss. I thought, this is a team who has been scoring points at a rapid race. I think they put 70 points on Furman, but it didn't matter. So I certainly give credit to Kentucky, but I also look at Ole Miss as well and just say, like, hey, what's going on here? Is this going to be what Ole Miss is this season? Are they a little bit soft? Was this just a bad given Saturday? What was the deal with that? But I don't think you can take Ole Miss off the hook either. I think that was a bad loss for them. Not that Kentucky, hasn't been, like you said, a little bit frisky this season, but it's the number 6 team in the country losing at home on a Saturday afternoon. That's a tough look.
To Mark Stoops in Kentucky, who, it's not like they're just going to come out guns a-blazing and catch you off guard and score 40 points. No, what Kentucky is. It's not like they've completely changed their identity or anything like that. The offense is legitimately bad. It just, Ole Miss got out-physicaled and bullied at times. And you know what? Ole Miss is the Miami Dolphins of college football. They always have flash. They got a charming coach who everybody loves, right? But when it comes down to it, paper tiger, always. Never can compete with the big boys. And I was actually buying into Ole Miss being able to do that this year because of the defense and how good the D-line was and the different roster construction Ole Miss had employed for this season. But evidently not. Lane Kiffin, always a paper tiger. And I'm a Lane Kiffin guy, but I'm never, if they couldn't do it this season, I'm never believing in it. It's not going to happen. They're fun, but like, they're not going to be one of the big dogs. And they proved that yet again.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. I mean, that's just a very brutal loss for them. And like you said, I mean, this is a year that they've gone all in on. And when you're, a school like Ole Miss and you go all in, I think it's particularly stings a little bit more when you have those failures, especially in this case against a Kentucky team that I'm sure no one was even circling that game before the season.
Well, Ryan mentioned frisky and fun teams. I think Arkansas fits into that category.
I was thinking that too. Yeah. I think they're frisky and fun. Bobby
Petrino, new OC this year. Offense has looked pretty good with Taylor Green at quarterback. Inconsistent at times, but they could score. And Jaquindon Jackson, running back transfer from Utah, third in the nation, in rushing touchdowns behind Dylan Sampson, who's second, and Chris Johnson himself and Ashton Jeanty at number 1. My God, is that guy electric. So we're talking about one of the better running backs in college football this year in Jaquindon Jackson for the Hogs. This offense can score, as I mentioned. Ryan, I'll kick it to you first. What is your biggest key of the game for a Tennessee win here?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of you can go in many different directions because I think the paths for Tennessee to win, there's so many of them, I guess, that any number of things, if they do, I think they'll be able to win. I'll say just going to Taylor Green, and he's kind of a hard guy to figure out because he's had some really nice games passing. He's just been very inconsistent passing. He threw 416 yards against Oklahoma State, even 279 last week, but then he's got 161 against UAB, 151 against Auburn. So I'll say, Tennessee controlling his arm and not giving up a bunch of plays in the pass game, especially down the field. Arkansas's run game is good. Jaquindon Jackson's awesome. But I just still think what we've seen from Tennessee's run defense, it's pretty stout. And I think Tennessee will still have, as good as Jaquindon Jackson is, I think Tennessee will still have a pretty significant advantage in this game from a front seven against Arkansas's offensive line standpoint. So if Tennessee can avoid Arkansas making big plays through the air and really make them grind out a lot of drives and have a lot of success, really beating them on the ground, I just don't think Arkansas is going to be able to do that. So there's another number of ways you can go with it, but I'll say if Tennessee can force Taylor Green to have, a quiet game through the air where he's inaccurate and inconsistent and they can't find a lot of rhythm in the passing game, I have a, real hard time thinking that Arkansas is going to be able to pull off the upset.
We've seen Tennessee generate a lot of pressure in each game, but maybe the sack numbers aren't quite there for this Tennessee defense. One thing that I have no doubt about with this Tennessee defense is them being able to stop the run. Like, the run defense has been overwhelmingly great for Tennessee this season. And Arkansas is a running team that they're pretty balanced offensively, honestly. Top 25 in both, I believe, in college football so far, rushing offense and passing offense. There's some more stats we can get into a little bit later, but I do have confidence in Tennessee being able to shut down pretty much any run game right now. Rick, what is your top key to this game?
Yeah, I think like Ryan alluded to a second ago, there's a lot of different ways that Tennessee can win this game, but I think if you take one sort of central factor from it all, it's just to go out into a road environment, to be tough, be physical, have a little bit of swagger. Like I think what really helped them at Oklahoma. You think about that game at OU and just sort of Tennessee's ability to get out of the starting gates and be able to put pressure on Oklahoma. Man, they really got to Jackson Arnold quickly. I think that was an example of Tennessee just saying, hey, we've got a lot of swagger. We've got a lot of confidence. We're going to go out there and use it to our advantage. To me, that's kind of the central point around this, right? It's going to be a night game. They're going to be bringing a lot of energy. They're going to be bringing a lot of the great atmosphere. I think this is an opportunity for Tennessee to once again put their foot in the ground and say, you know what? We're going to be tough. We're going to silence this crowd based on our running ability, with the ability to run the ball, and then also with the way that we're going to put pressure on their quarterback as well. So I think what Ryan says is good. Arkansas is a team that wants to have explosive plays. Frankly, they're going to need explosive plays. I do expect them to get down to Tennessee in the first quarter. They're going to need to throw the ball to get back up to kind of make that climb. We've seen it in past games. But also, when they get explosive, they can tend to get a bit reckless as well. So I actually look for Tennessee's defense to maybe try to step up and create a couple of turnovers because, again, those explosive plays can happen. Don't get me wrong. Bobby Petrino, he can orchestrate a couple of these nice pass plays or nice run plays. They've got a dual threat quarterback who can really extend a play and make it happen. But again, when they want to get explosive, they can really get reckless at the same time. So I think as long as Tennessee stays kind of compact, they do what they know how to do. I see plenty of ways that Tennessee can and will win this game.
Yeah, something Taylor Green hasn't been great at is taking care of the football. 5 picks on the year and taking sacks. Doing my reading this week, Arkansas hasn't been great at protecting the quarterback on paper, 2.4 sacks per game, but a lot of them have been on Taylor Green and, just his trying to create, end up getting sacks. You know how it goes. So,
and he also throws, you won't see it in the stat sheet, but he can throw some lobs. He throws some passes with a lot of touch on them. He's gotten a few of his receivers killed this year, just based on, throwing just kind of lob balls. The receiver's got to wait for it, and the safety's got to, he's got a full runway to go down. So that's one of those things that's not on the stat sheet, but it's one of those areas where it's like, hey, that's where Arkansas kind of gets themselves in trouble. That's where Taylor Green kind of gets himself in trouble sometimes, at least from the bit that I've watched Arkansas this year.
You mentioned big plays, Rick. Arkansas ranks 18th in the nation in yards per completion with just over 14. And of course, we're talking about a Tennessee defense that in the Tim Banks era has always been good at, eliminating big plays. Tennessee ranks 8th in yards per completion allowed. So as an 8th best. So this is a Tennessee defense that, as always, doesn't allow a lot of deep balls, a lot of big completions. That's kind of what Arkansas, that's their bread and butter in the passing game. Ryan, anything else you want to add regarding what Rick said here?
No, not really. And I think there's just a confidence in that, Jack, because of what you said. Like, even Tennessee defenses under Tim Banks that have struggled have done a good job of that, of containing that. And the other thing I'll add too that I didn't really know until talked to Andrew Hutchinson about Best of Arkansas Sports today too, and it kind of goes in to the point about Arkansas being able to drive the length of the field. Their kicking game has not been very good. I didn't know that their kicker from last year is the Jags. Jack,
Cam
your
Little.
starting kicker this year. And it's been very shaky replacing him. So again, they ran that fake field goal too last week against A&M in a big spot. So it's without those chunk plays, it's hard to see Arkansas scoring a ton. And Tennessee is just not only this year against a lot of lesser competition, but even against good offenses in past with worse defenses, they've been really good at limiting those.
No doubt about it. My key was going to be make Taylor Green make mistakes, as I said, get him out of the pocket, just get him to do something dumb. And I think Tennessee will be able to do that on a couple of occasions. Also, if you look at the Arkansas offense, the touchdown numbers are a bit lacking given how many yards the Hogs have accumulated. This is because their red zone efficiency is awful. They're only scoring 75% of the time in the red zone. That is outside the top 100 in college football, just below WKU, FAU, just below Arkansas. We're talking about Arkansas being in the range of Mississippi State, Charlotte's, Louisiana Tech's, Colorado State. So Arkansas not good in the red zone. I feel confident in Tennessee's ability to bend, not break if they're ever going to bend. So I actually don't think this game is going to be all that close. I think it's going to be closer than maybe a 40-point margin I thought before the season, Ryan, but this is still a Tennessee team that is much, much better than Arkansas. I know it's on the road. I know it's at night, but Tennessee just did that. They've had a couple of experiences being away from Neyland Stadium and big game atmospheres already this season. Sure, it's another big game now. Tennessee's definitely going to be glad to be in the friendly confines of Neyland Stadium here for the rest of October, basically. So I still think that Tennessee is about a 20 points better than Arkansas, even with it being on the road. That's kind of where I'm at. Another 3-score win for Tennessee.
One thing I will add on the red zone offense for Arkansas, it's one of the more peculiar, just from a number standpoint, red zone offenses I've seen. Because you're right, I think it's like 7 trips to the red zone they haven't scored in, which obviously is bad. But it's like 17 of 18 scores for touchdowns. They're not kicking many field goals there. And the thing that's real crazy, of those like 17 touchdowns, 16 of them are rushing touchdowns, and there's one passing touchdown in the red
Yeah,
zone.
Jaquindon Jackson's a total vulture. Yes.
Yes. Which again, Tennessee's run defense is good. Like, you feel like there's a chance they might make Taylor Green make some plays and beat him in the red zone. So I thought that was really interesting and will be an interesting dynamic in this game. I wouldn't go quite as far to the extent that you did, Jack, of thinking this game's going to be that much of a blowout. Not that I'd be shocked if it is, but to me, Arkansas's run defense has been really good. I think Tennessee's going to have to do stuff through the air. I don't think you'll see Josh Heupel play it as conservative, at least if they have Lance Hurd and John Campbell back in the lineup. We'll get our first injury report later here on Wednesday night, and we'll have that on the site. But just given Tennessee's offense hasn't been very explosive this season, and I do think this is a game that Arkansas's pass defense has been a little bit shaky. This is a game where I think Tennessee should be really aggressive, trying to get into a rhythm in the pass game before this slate in October, and obviously Alabama in 2 weeks. But with that, and with the fact Arkansas has been good against the run, I wouldn't be shocked if this is a more competitive game. A 10-point game, a game where Arkansas covers. And the one thing I will say that I think has to give Tennessee some confidence, or not even necessarily Tennessee some confidence, but makes it hard for me to see the upset. It's just Arkansas has such a Butch Jones era Tennessee vibe where if they get in a close game, they're going to do something stupid and lose. Like, they just don't play winning football in these close games. And that makes it feel like if this game does be close and Arkansas plays a lot better, and Tennessee struggles a little bit, even then, even games tight, even though it's on the road and the pressure would be on Tennessee, I still find myself having more confidence in Tennessee to win a close game.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys or those listening watched Arkansas, Oklahoma State, but Arkansas should have won that game by 20. They outplayed them big time. We're up big early too, but Oklahoma State was able to come back and win off of special teams mistakes, pick sixes, just back-breaking turnovers and mistakes that Arkansas made down the stretch to ultimately
missed field goals.
Yeah, to ultimately
and the Texas A&M game sort of in the same line as well.
Yeah, Arkansas, I think, outplayed the Aggies in Jerry World as well. Rick, all our keys are basically about Tennessee defense versus Arkansas offense. Ryan brings up a good point that maybe this is the game Nico and this Tennessee passing offense can really click, because we haven't really seen it yet. Do you think, at least in a big game, do you think that this could be that spot where Nico and these receivers have a breakout type performance?
I think there's an opportunity for that sort of breakout game because of what Ryan talked about, because Arkansas can be a little bit susceptible in the pass game at times, because they have been a little bit more stout in the run game at times. I think that Tennessee is obviously going to use their creativity to figure out how to get the ball. But it's actually funny, and I might have a little bit different opinion than you guys, and I'd be interested to know what it is as well. But just I was writing about Nico Iamaleava yesterday, and I was writing about the receivers the day before, and I just kind of came to the conclusion, really looking back at it, Tennessee's not had a game so far where they've had to call upon the arm of Nico Iamaleava to go out there and win them a game, or at least to be the difference maker in a game. And so I look at this Arkansas game, and I'm like, is that going to be this game where Tennessee needs Iamaleava's arm in the fourth quarter to be the difference maker in this game? And I don't think so. So I do think that this is a game where, Tennessee's passing offense has an opportunity to put some good things on the board, especially in the first half, to get some things going. I think that we've seen Tennessee's offense be effective at blitzing opponents out of the gate. One of the ways that you blitz an opponent out of the gate is that you use the run to set up the pass, and you get explosive plays off of the passing game. You saw it to Dante Thornton against Oklahoma. You've seen it to Dante Thornton at other times in the year, I believe against North Carolina State. So I certainly think that this is an opportunity for the passing game to really get on track, to get to build a little bit of steam as it heads into the more meaty part of the SEC slate. But I also think that, this is a game where I do expect Tennessee to get up by 7 to 14 points at some point in the second half. To me, I have about a 17 to 35 point game, 35-17, if I said that right. And so in my head, I'm forecasting a second half where I do see Tennessee start to run the ball a little bit more just to keep the clock moving and get to the fourth quarter. So that's the way that I see it. I don't think that Tennessee is going to have a lights out breakout passing attack this game because I don't think they'll need it for all four quarters. But I think that there's absolutely an opportunity at the beginning of the game for Tennessee to really build a little bit of momentum, build a little bit of rhythm, and see what they can do and take that into next week against Florida.
I think I said this on another podcast, but putting yourself into the shoes of a fan, and if you are actually concerned about this game and think it's going to be close, then maybe it's not this game. But if I'm a fan, I would almost want Tennessee to trail in the first quarter, like 7. Just get down 7-0, maybe even 10-0. I'm confident Tennessee is going to be able to win this game 98% of the time. So if I was a fan, I would be totally fine with.
You just want to see how they respond in that moment.
Tennessee offense plays from behind, how Nico plays from behind, and that Arkansas's got all the momentum early. The place is rocking. It's a night game atmosphere. I mean, everything's on Arkansas's side early. It's a disastrous first 7 minutes for Tennessee. How does Nico and the offense respond? I want to see that because we haven't seen it. You're right, Rick. Nico hasn't had to do anything really. I mean, not a whole lot. The NC State game was just defense domination. They could have won that game scoring 13 points, right? And then Oklahoma, it was similar, maybe not as extreme, but it didn't feel like Oklahoma's offense was really going to pose any threat the whole game. So I just want to see what that looks like, Tennessee trailing. And I don't really know if we'll see it until the Alabama game, maybe. Who knows? Maybe even after that. But maybe it happens this game, and it would make sense for Arkansas to have some sort of plan on the first drive for Bobby Petrino to scheme something up and Arkansas take a quick lead.
Yeah, the thing I would say that, no, I don't think that's necessarily wrong. I think there's probably more comfort in that happening at a home game as opposed to it being on the road.
Yeah,
but no, I mean, that wouldn't be the end of the world, and I think the Bobby Petrino point makes sense. The thing I would say to Rick, where maybe I would maybe not disagree, but have a different outlook on it. It's like Tennessee, and it's not like Tennessee, even when Tennessee's offense is humming and they're throwing it a lot, it's not like it's their rate. They're still going to run the ball. We've seen for 3 years when Tennessee has the lead, their offense largely looks the same. So I think if there's a confidence in Nico not to make mistakes, and there's a confidence in the offensive tackles and the offensive line as a whole that they can hold up in pass protection, then I don't think you're necessarily, just because Tennessee has the lead in the second half, you won't see them. That means they can't be aggressive and they can't be throwing and they can't make plays in the air. Because, I mean, it was the Oklahoma game. They were running, if it was.
Sure.
They were running the ball on third down, no matter if it was 3rd and 10, basically, or they were going to move the pocket and throw it quick. So, I don't think your point's inaccurate by any means, but I still wonder if Tennessee just uses this game for more work on that, because they need to, in my opinion. That's one of the biggest areas this team needs to grow. Jack, you said it, that certainly falling behind would put them in that spot, and it would be really interesting to see how they could respond to it. And one thing that I would say I've been sitting on, and I'm not full-fledged 110 miles per hour on it, but just generally speaking, I think Dante Thornton needs to play a lot more. And I'm also curious to see if Mike Matthews plays more. They need receivers that can raise the ceiling of the passing attack. And from what we've seen right now, Dante Thornton's the only Tennessee receiver that I think can strike fear into defenses with things he can make, the stuff he can do to make big plays. And I'm not saying he's got to play every snap, but he's been playing about 20 to 30 snaps a game. I think that number needs to be more in the 40 to 50 range.
He just looks the best. Like when he's on the field and when he's running, I mean, man, he looks like a pro. And it feels like the percentage of plays that are, drawn up for Dante Thornton compared to the snaps he plays is pretty higher than any other skill position player on Tennessee's offense. So maybe we do see more of that. I'm in favor of that. I don't know what's preventing Dante Thornton from playing a lot of snaps. I don't think it's other players out playing him. Maybe he's just limited in some way that we don't know about. But from what he's done so far, he passes the eye test big time.
Well, I think
the plan.
Go ahead.
The season. That's what I think it is. I think they just failed to adapt to the plan. I think the plan was for him to be a big play guy that plays 20 snaps a game, and Chris Brazell and Brew McCoy are your starters out wide. And I think Brew's going to stay in that role because Brew does so many things well, and I think he's a safety blanket for Nico. But I think they've been not that Chris Brazell can't play, but Dante Thornton's been better than Chris Brazell. So I don't.
100%.
To me, I don't get why Chris Brazell's playing so many more snaps than Dante Thornton at this point, and maybe he is a little limited. I mean, I would say maybe he's limited in what they feel like he could do from a route tree standpoint, but
that's
not Tennessee's route trees super complex, and we've seen him catch balls over the middle. We've seen him catch balls over the sideline for big plays. So it's not like his only big plays are just running deep. The only thing I feel like we haven't seen him do is catch those, 10 to 15 yard kind of comeback curl routes. So to me, I almost think it's more just like what they had as their plan for the receiver rotation coming into the year that they've been slow to adapt to. And it's not that Chris Brazell's been bad. It's more that I think Dante Thornton's been so good that to me it should alter the plan.
Yeah, two things on that real quick. I think number one, man, you could kind of sense this Dante Thornton potentially a breakout was coming this year. And I think it was because a lot of genuine conversation during the preseason, told to the media about just sort of his journey. The biggest thing that stands out to me about Dante Thornton, and I can see this now through 4 or 5 weeks of the season, is that Kelsey Pope said before the year, he's kind of gone from wanting to prove people wrong to just wanting to prove himself right. I think he is so much more of a comfortable wide receiver. I think he's a lot more confident in this Tennessee offense. I think he's feeling healthy, especially when that injury, may have been a real detractor last year as well. I just think it's a guy who you can really tell is coming into his own, is filling out his own shoes, and is finding his place on this team. About Brazell, though, I thought that Kelsey Pope had a really honest answer yesterday when asked about Chris Brazell. I'll read it real quick. This is Kelsey Pope's response on how he has settled into Tennessee's offense. Quote, Chris knows the system. He understands it. He's been really good at times, and there's other times where he hasn't been to the standard. I think, again, that's something that starts in practice. As he continues to go, obviously, he's progressing, getting better. I think that will I think as long as he's got the right focus, he comes in with the right mentality, I think the sky will continue to be the limit for him, but the consistency piece will continue to be the factor. If we can't be consistent, you won't ever see the best of anybody in any position. So consistency for him will be key. So to me, that's what it sounds like. It might just be sort of a consistency thing, whether that's happening on the practice field. Obviously, it's not happening as much in games. Ryan, you just smartly alluded to that. So fascinating points on the wide receiver room all around. But I did think that was a fairly honest answer by Kelsey Pope, just saying, hey, the consistency is not there to get the production that I think he wants, and that certainly we, coaching staff, wants for him.
Yeah, and you talked about Mike Matthews. I mean, he's a 5-star for a reason. If he's, just supremely talented, he should be getting snaps. And you look around college football, look how many freshmen are making impacts. I mean, I'm sure it's hard if you're Josh Heupel and this coaching staff to not see Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams absolutely scorching teams and be like,
Ryan Wingo.
Yeah.
Those are like the three. I think Mike Matthews was like the number 4 receiver in the country, and I think those are the 3 guys ahead of him. Wingo might have been 5 right behind him. But those are the guys right in the same tier as him in the rankings.
Yeah, Bryant Wesco as well for Clemson. There's so many freshman wide receivers specifically that are making impacts. So if Tennessee has a guy, I know Josh Heupel has not played true freshman hardly ever in his tenure, and I'm not surprised by Mike Matthews' lack of usage. But if you need a spark and he's that guy, he's talented like that, then play him, because that's a thing. Like, it works. You see it happen.
Yeah, I do wonder if this is the week that we could see him more, because he was banged up early in the season. He didn't play until Kent State. It didn't feel like the Oklahoma game was going to be the game, just the way they played that game. It didn't feel like that was going to be the game that they threw him in there. So I do wonder if it's this week that he gets more run. And I know yesterday Kelsey Pope talked about, needing him to make plays, or he's going to make plays for him down the stretch. Rick, you were there. I was not there. I just read the quote.
I did. I asked that question, actually.
Oh, wow. How about that?
About Mike Matthews, yeah. So
curious on tone. He said, and man, this is tough to get a read on. Just reading the transcript, he said, Mike Matthews is going to be a guy that makes plays for us out wide. Did you read that as a literal out wide? Because he's mostly played in the slot, and I think the slot's where his opportunity really is. Did you think of that as did it have more of a literal out wide, like he's going to be out playing out wide, or did it just have like a conversational, out wide at receiver, vibe to it, because I found that aspect interesting. I probably should have gone back and truly listened to it as opposed to just reading it. But because to me, it feels like his opportunity. I mean, we're just talking about the log jam with Dante Thornton, McCoy, and Brazell out wide. It feels like him getting in there and taking some of Squirrel White snaps is really the path to him being a part of the offense more.
I'll tell you what, I didn't necessarily tag it or flag it in the exact moment as, he's talking about a somewhere, some sort of positional spot with Tennessee's wide receiver room. So to me, I guess in hindsight, I take it more as conversationally. It clearly didn't stand out. It clearly didn't raise a flag or anything when he said that. I will admit, though, you know how it can be sometimes when they start answering, you're just trying to kind of listen for quotes. You're trying to get some of those tweets out.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I listened perfectly, but I will say that it didn't stand out to me in the moment. I see what you're coming from it now. So I'm thinking that my brain just sort of took that as more conversationally, more just saying, hey, we want to get him out there. We want to get him onto the field. We want to get him in the motion. We want to get him running around, something along those lines. But no, that's a fascinating thought. And maybe we'll post that on Twitter or something like that a little bit later on. But encourage everybody to go find it on the Rocky Top Insider YouTube account.
Back to the Arkansas game for a couple of fill in the blanks before we hop out of here. Ryan, I'll start with you. Tennessee blows out Arkansas if blank.
Tennessee throws for 275 plus yards. If they have some big plays in the pass game, I did think that was interesting too. Talking to Andrew Hutchinson of Best of Arkansas Sports, he did say that some bust in the secondary have been an issue for Arkansas this year, and it doesn't feel like we've seen a ton of that in for teams against Tennessee. And obviously, Josh Heupel is very good at exploiting that. So I think if that happens, and Tennessee can make some plays down the field throwing, that's going to loosen up the running lanes, and Tennessee will be able to score a lot. To me, a blowout in this game is about Tennessee's offense more than anything, because I think the defense is going to play well and hold Arkansas to 20 or less points somewhere in that range. And then the one, I feel like it's, I have to say it every week. Huge bye week advantage here for Tennessee.
Oh, he got it. He got me. He got it first.
Arkansas, no open dates this year. 5 straight games. They've played SEC games each of the last 2 weeks. Physical, close SEC games. Josh Heupel really good in his career. Coming off bye weeks, I believe it's 8-1 overall, 3-0 at Tennessee. And I think it's an average of 41 points in those games. Last year's win against Texas A&M, 20-13, was the only time a Heupel offense has scored less than 34 points in one of those games. So you combine a defense that's had some, busts or breakdowns this season with Heupel coming off an open date. I think Tennessee gets an easy one. An easy big play in this game would be my prediction, and they can do that, and it can lead to a good day for the passing offense. I think Tennessee scores 35-40 points. This game's a blowout.
Yeah. So in a similar way, and I'll say this, I already have it as about an 18-point game or so. So I think for it to even get above that and even be more of a blowout than that, I think 2 things have to happen, and they sort of go hand in hand with each other. Number one, I think if Tennessee wins the turnover battle, specifically by maybe 2, I think that's a dominant spot for them. I think that means that Tennessee's offense is getting extra opportunities. I think that means that Tennessee could potentially have anywhere from 10 to 14 more points than expected. And I think that's where you get to blowout territory. The other side of that coin, though, is that Ryan just alluded to it. I think Tennessee blows out Arkansas just if things go according to plan. Now, what is that plan? I don't exactly know. I'd be getting paid a lot more money if I was drawing up an offensive game plan for Tennessee this weekend. That being said, though, because of what Ryan just talked about a second ago, Josh Heupel's been really good coming out of bye weeks. He's been able to out-scheme these coaches. He's been able to get the offense going besides that one game, which was an outlier. So I just think that if things go according to plan for Tennessee, I have no doubt that Tennessee is going to have a better game plan going into this game than Arkansas is going to have. So if things go according to plan, maybe they can get a few turnovers here and there. They certainly win the turnover battle. I think that's how you're looking at, anywhere from a 21 to a 24, maybe even a 27-point victory. Again, we're talking blowouts right here, so that's where I'm leaning towards. But
Yeah,
that's to me what it is. If you win the turnover battle specifically by 2, and then just if things go according to plan, because I have so much trust after these last couple of years in what Josh Heupel can do after a bye week.
Love the turnover battle note. I like both of y'all's, actually. I would probably side more with the passing offense just because if it does flourish in this game, it's curtains for Arkansas because Tennessee has such a safe floor defensively. And even though Arkansas is good at defending the run, I still think Tennessee's run scheme will prevail and that Tennessee will be able to run the ball with some efficiency. Might not be guns a-blazing, it's 5 yards pop, but Tennessee will be able to run the ball well, all things considered. Tennessee just has such a safe floor as a team. That's why they're a national championship contender. So if Nico in this passing offense can finally have a breakout game, this one's a blowout, probably 4 touchdowns. That's where I'm at.
I think it's interesting you say the thing about the run game, and it's true. You go back to the Oklahoma game, it didn't feel like Tennessee ran the ball that well with its running backs. I believe Dylan Sampson and Deshaun Bishop each averaged over 4 yards a pop still. Tennessee's longest run in the game was like 18 yards from Dylan Sampson, so it wasn't like there was one big long run that really skewed that number. So even in a game against a good run defense, when Tennessee ran the ball a lot and Oklahoma kind of knew how Tennessee was going to play it, Tennessee was still, not that they were just great running the ball, but they still just chugged along and had some consistent success doing it. And I think that you talk about Tennessee's floor as a whole being high. To me, it feels like the floor for the run game right now is pretty high too. And Tennessee's just going to stick with it. It's not going to be something that they abandon and go away from just if it struggles early in the game.
Last fill in the blank, Rick. Tennessee loses to Arkansas. If blank.
Tennessee loses to Arkansas. If I'll go back to my point about the blowout, I think if Tennessee loses a turnover battle, that's a bit of a nightmare situation. But I think that if Tennessee isn't tough, if they aren't physical, if they let the environment get the best of them, if they let some of these explosive plays get the best of them, one of the things that I'll compliment about Tennessee real quick is that in the few situations where they've had an explosive play go against them, which I can't really think of too many times this year, and really against North Carolina State and Oklahoma, but they've been able to bounce back. I think that's going to be a bit tougher of a challenge coming up this weekend against Arkansas. But again, I think that composure is going to be a big thing in this game. I think that if Tennessee is not winning, if things aren't going the right way, you can maybe look at Tennessee composure and say, where is it right now? What is, I have this metaphor in my head, but it doesn't really work out in a verbal route. But to me, that's it. I think that if Tennessee's giving up opportunities, if they're giving up the ball, and if they're playing rattled, if they're just not taking advantage of the opportunities, if they're playing without composure, if they're letting the environment get the best out of them, I can see that being a hindrance towards Tennessee. But frankly, I think that's an unlikely situation. I think that there are so many ways that Tennessee can win this game. But again, if we're talking about a loss, I think something weird has to happen just to the fact of you're saying, hey, Tennessee just was not. They were not tough that game. They were soft that game. That was the first thing I said about Ole Miss in that Kentucky loss, just that Ole Miss looked soft. That could be one of the things that you're talking about with the Tennessee loss, just because I don't see a lot of routes that it could happen.
Yeah, it's a little cliche, but this is what we were talking about at length before the Oklahoma game. And we haven't brought it up probably because Arkansas is, just has a different outlook than Oklahoma. We think of them differently. Maybe you think of Fayetteville a little differently than Norman. I don't know. But it still exists. Like there's still been those games where Tennessee has completely fallen flat on the road, and it still could happen. But I think our doubts are lessening because of Tennessee's performances so far away from Neyland Stadium this year, Ryan.
Yeah, and just the makeup of this team, what you talked about a couple minutes ago, and I think I said this exact same thing for the Oklahoma game. In games in the past, it felt like if Tennessee was going to win big games on the road, the offense had to be really, really good. It doesn't feel that way. There's room for error with the offense. They don't have to force things. You feel like the defense is going to keep them in the game and keep them in a good spot, even if the offense isn't great. So I think that's a big aspect of it. And yeah, I think you're right too. The perception of Arkansas, the perception of this game, even though it is the ABC night game, it doesn't have quite as much as a big game feel to it. There's not a number beside Arkansas. Coming into the year, they were picked, 13th or 14th in the SEC. So I think it's still there. But like you said, all those factors lead to us maybe not viewing it quite the same way.
Ryan, Tennessee loses if blank.
A combination of Tennessee losing, essentially Arkansas stealing 3 possessions, whether that be Arkansas wins the turnover battle by 3 or they win the turnover battle by 2, but they have a fake punt that succeeds, or Tennessee muffs a punt, which I guess that might go as a turnover. I'm not sure how that works on official stats. Or Arkansas has a big return that sets them up with a at the Tennessee 20-yard line instead of their own 30-yard lines. Something to that extent where it feels like by a combination, Arkansas essentially steals 3 possessions.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's a really fascinating way to
basic.
look at that. Yeah,
it's basic upset formula, just turnovers and stuff. But again, I don't look at this game and to say there's one area where Arkansas has a real massive advantage on Tennessee, and I feel like they can really, really exploit.
What's your likelihood meter 1 to 10? Arkansas pulls off the upset, 10 being very likely, 1 being not likely at all.
2.5, I guess.
2.5, Rick?
I was going to say 2 at tops.
That's where I'm at. It's crazy, though, because this feels like the third hardest game remaining on Tennessee's schedule, right?
Well, it is.
Kentucky's better,
and
but that game's at home.
Yeah, and I think that the thing about this game, and I'm just thinking about, my takes before the Florida game and things like that, you brought that up a second ago, it's just a completely different team than Oklahoma. And I get that Arkansas's got some explosive plays. They're obviously a different team. Where Oklahoma was good on defense and struggling to find their offense, Arkansas has been a little bit different. They can have their explosive plays. They've had some nice moments on defense. They've had a little bit more of a well-rounded field towards them. But I don't look at Tennessee and Arkansas in the same class right now. To me, it feels like a 2021 Tennessee where you're saying like, hey, we might have something here. We're losing games, but at least they're not boring games. At least they're not 20-17 type of games or 17-13 type of games, but they're still vulnerable in a lot of spots. They're still reckless in a lot of spots. They have that explosive offense. They have a nice defense, but it's a young offense. The whole team does not have this offensive scheme down like Tennessee has for the last 4 years. So it actually kind of reminds me of some of those early days of Tennessee where, they're scoring points. They have some explosive plays, but sometimes they can also make you want to pull your hair out. Sometimes they're going to lose, to teams that can just put up a ton of points on them. So I respect Arkansas. I've enjoyed watching Arkansas this season. My Arkansas friends have not enjoyed watching them because they feel like they keep getting the rug pulled out from under them. But I think that this is a spot where I don't necessarily Tennessee and Arkansas as two great competitors. It'll be a fun game and all because it's college football, but I don't know. I don't see Tennessee having too much trouble.
No, you're right, Rick. And I've been thinking of this is kind of a bad matchup for Arkansas. Like it's a good matchup for Tennessee, this Arkansas team, because it feels like Arkansas, has a solid defense, but nothing that's just going to shut Tennessee down. And then their offense is flashy, but it's a little YOLO ball. And I don't think that's going to work against Tennessee. And a lot relying on the run, too, which isn't going to work. So, it feels like Texas would be a great matchup against Tennessee the way they play. But this Arkansas team, I just don't see it. I don't see a path to a legitimate upset for Arkansas. I mean, it's there. We've laid out the scenarios of how it could happen, but it feels like chaos would have to reign. And I just think this one, there shouldn't be a lot of worry going into it.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think it being the open date to me is the big.
Yes.
You love that. You love that stat.
Well, it's not. It
matters.
It's true. No,
it matters.
It's very valid.
And it's not even just that aspect of it. It's the fact that Tennessee had a big win against Oklahoma, where it would be a letdown spot if Tennessee had to go play at Arkansas last week, right after that Oklahoma game. You have to get right back on the road. It's like they've had a week to regroup. Not even take out all the Josh Heupel stuff. They've had a week to regroup. They've had a week to get healthy at, really important spot at offensive tackle. Again, we said it, Jack, or I think I said it, and we were both in agreement talking about this Oklahoma-Arkansas stretch on the Chase Thomas podcast before the season. If Tennessee was to lose this game after winning the Arkansas game, which was Chase's big thing, Tennessee was going to go 1-2 in those two games, it would just be a really bad sign about this team's maturity, that they would be looking ahead to Florida right now after an open date. And nothing that we've seen from Tennessee to this point would make me think that they have that type of mindset.
Completely agree.
I believe them when they, like, it's been 4 years now. I believe them when they say that there is a next game mentality inside that locker room. I believe that that's how this team is programmed, is conditioned, is brainwashed a little bit to think about it. I know that's a big sports cliche, and I know that, you know, every team wants to say that, and they all want to say, you know, of course we're not looking ahead. We're looking at the next, you know, this next week, and the only thing that matters is the next opponent, blah, blah, blah. I think that some programs are not good at actually putting that into motion. I think that Tennessee is one of those teams that genuinely, from a top to bottom perspective, can put distractions aside and say, we only have one goal this week, and that's to beat Arkansas, and then we'll figure out our next goal for the season. So after 4 years, I genuinely believe that Tennessee is one of those teams that operates in that kind of manner.
So, Rick, you're leaning towards 35-17, around 18-point win. Of course,
Yes.
subject to change. Score predictions will come out on Friday.
Yes. Boom. 35-17. I can't hold up this piece of paper, so that might have not been good. But yes, 35-17 is what I've written down.
I'm leaning towards 20+. Ryan, you said 10 points is what you're leaning to right now?
I don't know if I don't really have any sort of feel for what I'm going to pick. I just thought I wouldn't be surprised if that is the case. Yeah, I mean, honestly, the 35-17 number sounds pretty good.
Yeah,
I haven't thought a whole lot about score, but
I gotta go play it on
range.
I gotta go play it on CFB 25 first, and then I'll take my final prediction from there.
That's always smart.
There you go.
Although Tennessee is so bad, I think Arkansas might actually be as good, if not better than them, and 2 out of the 3 categories in that game. Very poorly ranked. I'd hope for an update eventually.
Honestly, I haven't played with Tennessee a lot. I'm not gonna lie. I'm trying to see what spread's 13.5. A little less than I thought it'd be.
It opened at like 10.5, and it's moved pretty heavily in Tennessee's favor. I think it moved all the way up to 14, or maybe 14.5, and like you said, now down to 13.5.
I don't know how much sports betting you guys do, but 2 of my closest friends do a ton of it, like total degens, and they always are. They don't even bet based off who they think is going to win. They just bet the team that less money's on because they're like, house always wins. So it's just a game to them. Like, they don't even have takes really. It's just like, oh, who has the least amount of money on them, bet that team. So what are you gonna say?
When you can turn gambling into mathematics, that's when things get a little scary for me. That's when I'm like, all right, you know, you guys are you're swimming in different waters than I'm just betting because I think that, you know, so-and-so is going to have a good night. It's like you're using algorithms, formulas, a lot of mathematics is going into this. That's just a different world.
And so it's funny, they actually are onto something, I think, because they win a lot. So I've naturally been looking at that more, and CBS Sports app has that always the public bet percentage. So right now, public bet percentage is 79% Tennessee to cover 13.5. Naturally, a lot more money's on Arkansas money line because who's betting Tennessee money line? But because odds are so, you know, not good. But that's where it's at right now. 80% of the money on Tennessee to cover. Before we get out of here, unless y'all have any more football notes?
No.
Nope.
Whoever wants to take it, but I'll toss it to Ryan naturally. Basketball practices have been underway. Just one so far or multiple?
Well, that's the thing. You know, the official start of practice, we've seen one. It started last week. But we've really seen 3 practices going back to, I guess we saw 1 in July, 1 in August, 1 in September. So we've had 3 chances to watch this team. You know,
Felix Okpara, that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I mean, I think you talk about a really, really high floor that guy has. I think he's going to be, you know, to me, almost a floor feels like an 8-8-3 guy, with that 3 being blocks. He just dunks a lot of everything around the rim. I think he's the best rim protector Tennessee's had under Rick Barnes. Just a really good athlete, plays with really good instincts. Not a guy I think Tennessee's going to throw the ball down to on the block and ask for a bunch of buckets like they did, you know, Jonas they do at times last year. But like him a lot. I think Igor Milicic might be the best offensive player on this team as a kind of a 3-level scorer. And you know, it's just exciting for him. I'm sure it's exciting for him personally, but exciting to watch him. he played at Virginia and Charlotte, which are two of the slowest, I think, bottom 5 paces in the country. And it's been exciting watching him get up and down and be able to score some in transitions. So I think he's going to provide a big boost to the offense. And Sky Ziegler's the Sky Ziegler, Jemai Meshak's Jemai Meshak. We know what a lot of those guys are. I think Chaz Lanier's going to be a really good shooter for this team, knock down a lot of shots on the perimeter. And, I think the sophomores, to me, is where a lot of intrigue is. JP Estrella has been a little bit banged up, but how much growth can he have? I think Cade Phillips had a really, really nice offseason. I think he's going to be in the rotation. And then Cam Carr is obviously a guy with a crazy high ceiling that's drawn a lot of Rick Barnes' ire when we've been watching practice to this point, which is always, an interesting thing. So that's kind of a general outlook on what we've seen. A brief summation through a handful of practices and then just talking to some people.
Rick, anything you want to add there?
No, not necessarily. I think that sums it up pretty good. I just think that one of the things that Tennessee fans who are going to be watching this team, who are going to be excited for this team, it's going to be jarring just right off the bat, just how much transition actually happened this offseason. It's something that's still just kind of, I got to kind of, adjust and get my bearings set when I see this team on the court, just because I'm not fully familiar yet with a team that does not have a Josiah Jordan-James, a Santiago Vescovi, a Jonas Adu, a Tobe Awaka, certainly a Dalton Connect, who, by the way, started preseason camp with the Los Angeles Lakers yesterday, Tuesday in Los Angeles. So yeah, to me, it's still just one of those things. I'm still just trying to get my bearings, to collect that, but it is a bit jarring just walking out onto the court and not seeing a team or certain players that you're so familiar with seeing over the last 3, 4, 5 years, handful of it, whatever it's been. So it's a really fascinating roster. There's a ton of impressive pieces. Ryan has written a ton of good work. I'm crashing and burning now that we're getting to the end of this podcast, but he's written a lot of good about all of them. But I just think that Tennessee fans are going to be really, it's going to be a little bit jarring, but then it's also going to be really exciting just how different this Tennessee basketball team looks.
Yeah, just so much turnover with the basketball and baseball teams this upcoming year. I mean, it's almost just wiped the slate clean, transfer portal it up. Whoever you got coming in is going to be starting. So Indiana exhibition in TBA later this month.
Yep.
Season starts November 4th against Gardner-Webb. So it'll be here before we know it, just a little over a month away from it being basketball time in Tennessee. Always wonderful when the seasons merge, isn't it, Ryan? It's just so nice for your workload. I mean,
yeah,
it's beautiful.
Not stressful, not time consuming at all, but it'll be fun. And in Tennessee baseball, I mean, you're kind of getting that already a little bit now. Tennessee baseball preseason practice started late last week. The rain kind of slowed down some of the stuff. So 2 inter-squad scrimmages underway so far this week that I've been able to watch. So we have notes on those up at the site. Hunter High by stock now, off to a great start through 2 scrimmages. And
high on high,
bullish on high. And then,
the Mid-State was loving that tweet. What was it, yesterday or the day before? The Mid-State was loving that tweet. You were the golden Academy, boy.
The Lipscomb Academy baseball family.
Yeah.
Liam Doyle threw 2 innings. Ole Miss lefty. He looked awesome on Monday, I guess that was. Andrew Fisher's hit a home run. Reese Chapman's hit a home run. Gavin Killen, the transfer from Louisville's off to a nice start. I think he's 3 for 4 through 2 scrimmages. So plenty of notes on that. And, obviously it's 2 6-inning scrimmages, incredibly, incredibly small sample size. But we'll continue to have more coverage throughout the fall. And that'll be fun to watch too. As you said, Jack, a lot of turnover and a handful of newcomers, both JUCO guys, freshmen, and obviously the big name transfers they brought in, and then some young guys like Hunter High trying to earn a role for themselves as well.
Absolutely. That's Ryan Shumpert. You can follow him at rshump00. That's SCHUMP. You can follow Rick Butler at Rick Butler on X. You can also follow me at Jack Foster Media, and be sure and follow at Rocky Top Insider on all social channels, and keep up with all your Tennessee coverage needs on RockyTopInsider.com. If you like this podcast, go to YouTube and watch it at Rocky Top Insider on YouTube. We have a new video version this season that we'd really like you to check out. But if not, you can also listen to us wherever you find your podcast. For Rick, for Ryan, I'm Jack. We'll see you next time.